WWF No Mercy on the Nintendo 64, the wrestling game of our childhoods. For so many of us, it wasn't just a game. It was a tradition, a core memory. I still remember staying up all night on the weekends. My brother, my cousin, and I huddled around the TV. It didn't matter what time it was, we could play forever. Every single one of our created characters had the same look. We used face number 6, which was the Shawn Michaels face, because why wouldn't we? And they all came out with the bazooka entrance. We thought it was the coolest thing ever. But here's the thing, nostalgia can be tricky. I love No Mercy, and I'll never forget it. But when I play it today, I have to admit, it's not as good as we make it out to be. And compared to the SmackDown games or even modern wrestling titles, it's hard not to notice how much the game has aged. Looking back, it's easy to see why No Mercy was such a big deal. Released in 2000, it was the crown jewel of Aki Corporation's wrestling games. Compared to the fast but shallow SmackDown series on the PlayStation, No Mercy felt deep. You had grapples, counters, stamina. It made you think strategically. Now let me tell you a quick story. When WWF No Mercy first came out, I somehow got one of the recalled copies. For those who don't know, early versions of the game had a nasty little bug. Your save data would just randomly erase. Imagine this: hours spent perfecting your created wrestlers, climbing through championship modes, and suddenly, everything was gone. I was convinced that my copy was broken. So much that my dad took me to the store, and that's when we found out it was on recall and they gave us a new copy. And that was the moment my real memories with No Mercy began. My brother, my cousin, and I, 3 Shawn Michael lookalikes armed with bazookas, taking over the WWF. The game gave us branching storylines in career mode, ladder matches, and a creative wrestler mode that blew our minds. Plus, for a game from the early 2000s, its roster and move variety were unmatched. Was it perfect? Not really. We just didn't see the flaws back then because it was the best that we had. Let's start with the features, because for a wrestling game released in 2000, No Mercy packed a ton into that little N64 cartridge. For example, if you were chasing the WWF Championship, you might get ambushed by rivals or forced into stipulation matches. It gave you replay value and it kept you hooked for hours, especially when you were trying to unlock every ending. I even paid the APA $1,000 for protection as Hardcore Champion. Match types were another huge selling point. Sure, you had your standard singles and tag team matches, but No Mercy gave us ladder matches that felt intense and chaotic. Climbing that ladder and desperately trying to grab the title was a challenge in itself. Then there were the backstage brawls, one of my favorites. You could fight in parking lots, locker rooms, and even a bar area. For the time, this level of interaction was incredible. Now let's talk about the roster. This was peak Attitude Era. You had legends like Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, Triple H, Undertaker, and Mankind. But it wasn't just the main eventers. This game gave us mid-carders and tag teams that made the WWF so special. Guys like the Hardy Boys, Edge and Christian, and Too Cool were all here. Not to mention the Dudley Boys. And let's not forget the ability to unlock legends like Andre the Giant and Shawn Michaels. For a wrestling fan, this roster was stacked. And in my footage here, I was playing No Mercy Plus, which is pretty much the same game, but I think it added the Big Show. And speaking of unlockables, this game really knew how to keep you playing. Winning titles and matches in championship mode earned you in-game currency, which you could spend to unlock hidden wrestlers, attires, and even moves. I really did love the SmackDown Mall as a kid. Customization was another standout feature. The creative wrestler mode let us design our own superstars. And while it was basic compared to today's games, it felt really revolutionary back then. Like I said earlier, every character that we made had the HBK face. Why? Because we could. And also, it didn't have original faces. You had to pick faces of other superstars. From choosing your entire moveset to picking entrances like the bazooka one, the options really made this game feel endless. All of these features combined made WWF No Mercy feel like the ultimate wrestling game. It wasn't just about spamming moves or winning matches. It was about crafting your own stories, unlocking rewards, and experiencing the WWF in a way we have never seen before. But while the game's depth set it apart back then, it also highlights why it struggles to hold up today. While we were grinding away on No Mercy, PlayStation owners were experiencing something different: the SmackDown series. These games were fast, flashy, and chaotic, almost even arcade-like. Matches felt like they flew by, and for kids who loved the Attitude Era's energy, it was a perfect fit. Then came the PlayStation 2, and games like SmackDown Just Bring It and Here Comes the Pain. Suddenly, No Mercy didn't feel so legendary. Better graphics, smoother gameplay, and more features made the N64's blocky visuals and slower pace seem outdated. Now, let's be real. When we revisit No Mercy today, it's hard to ignore its flaws. The controls, which once felt so smooth, now feel kind of slow and clunky. The AI doesn't put up much of a fight either. And the graphics, well, let's just say the blocky characters don't quite hit the same as they did in 2000. But here's the thing. Features like Championship Mode and Creative Wrestler were groundbreaking for their time. No wrestling game before No Mercy gave us that level of depth. And while it's rough by today's standards, there's still a charm to the game that modern titles just can't replicate. But you know what? I still love it. Not because it's perfect, but because of those nights spent with my family, making memories that no other game could replicate. Even if it is tough to play today, No Mercy still has a charm that can never be recreated. And here's where things get interesting. AEW Fight Forever promised to bring back the No Mercy magic. It used the Aki engine as inspiration, hoping to capture that same gameplay and feeling. But the result was a massive letdown. It launched unfinished, clunky, and way too basic for modern fans. Even nostalgia couldn't save it. When I last checked, the game was sitting at full price on Steam with 4 active players. That is not a success story. It's a cautionary tale. I honestly always think about how amazing the sequel would have been, WWF Backlash, if it would have came out. But the Nintendo 64 didn't stay around for very long after No Mercy. But here's the big question. Does WWF No Mercy still deserve its legendary status? Honestly, it depends. If you're talking about its impact back in 2000, Absolutely. It was groundbreaking. It gave us memories that we will never forget. Like me, my brother, and my cousin staying up all night, fighting for hours. But if you take off the rose-tinted glasses and look at it today, No Mercy isn't as great as we remember. Games like SmackDown Here Comes the Pain, or even modern WWE 2K titles blew past it in terms of graphics, gameplay, and depth. In the end, WWF No Mercy was never perfect, but perfection isn't why we loved it. It's about the memories, the late nights, and the friends and family we shared it with. For that reason alone, it'll always hold a special place in our hearts. Just maybe not on the pedestal we've put it on. Do you still think WWF No Mercy is the GOAT of wrestling games? Or has time changed your opinion? Drop a comment, hit that like button, and subscribe for more deep dives into wrestling's greatest games and memories. Thanks for watching.